Picture a razor blade. Just visualize it for a second in your mind's eye. It's a tool of absolute, unforgiving precision. Now, in the steady hand of surgeon, that blade saves a life. It separates the sick tissue from the healthy. It heals.
Right.
But you put that same blade in the hand of an enemy or someone reckless, and it becomes a deadly weapon. It wounds.
And that is the central tension of today's deep dive. We're exploring the theme of ambivalence, that incredibly fine line between healing and destruction.
It's the difference between a warming hearth fire that cooks your dinner
And a consuming forest fire that burns the house down.
Exactly. It's a heady concept, but, a necessary one. And to help us wrap our heads around this energy, we have to set the scene properly. We aren't in a sterile recording booth today.
No.
I want you to imagine we've just stepped into Cafe Karma.
Right. A heavy wooden door has just clicked shut behind us, blocking out the street noise. You can hear steps creaking on old parquet flooring.
And there's the clinking of a silver spoon in a porcelain cup somewhere in the corner. It's got that quiet, heavy atmosphere of an old university library, the kind of place where dangerous books are kept.
And lying right here on the marble table between us is a stack of ancient notes on Krittika, the third nakshatra, or lunar mansion, of the zodiac.
Such a fascinating place in the sky.
It's a high-voltage area, for sure. Our mission today is to analyze what we call the heavenly plane of Krittika. We're going to look at its archetype, its wild mythology, and its astronomical structure to understand one thing.
How do you handle this sharp energy without getting cut?
Precisely.
So let's unpack this, starting with the name itself, Krittika. I have to be honest, it doesn't sound soft and fluffy. It has a sharp phonetic sound to it.
It's definitely not fluffy. The name Krittika translates quite literally to the cutter, or the one who divides.
The one who divides.
In some ancient texts, it's even referred to simply as the scissors.
The cutter. That sounds, well, it sounds aggressive. If I met someone who called themselves the cutter, I'd probably leave the room.
It can be aggressive, sure. But let's look at the linguistics, because that's where the nuance lives. The Sanskrit root is katta, which means to cut or divide.
Okay, so is that where our English word critical comes from?
That's what etymologists are fairly certain of, yes. It's the origin.
Critical. Okay, that shifts the perspective a bit, because when we say someone has critical thinking skills, we don't mean they're destroying ideas barbarically.
Exactly. We mean they have the ability to disassemble complex things into manageable parts. They slice through the confusion to get to the core.
Like a film editor?
That's a great example. A film editor cuts the film? Is that destructive? I mean, technically, yes, they're removing pieces, but the intent is creative. They cut away the bad scenes to reveal the story.
So it's not about smashing things, it's about analysis. It's about taking a complex problem, maybe a knot of data or a confusing social situation, and using that razor blade to dissect it until it makes sense.
That's the high road of this energy, and that's why the primary symbols for this nakshatra are the axe, the razor, and the flame.
Sharp edges and fire? That feels like a dangerous combination to carry around in your psyche.
But necessary. Think about the peacock, which is another symbol associated with this energy. You might think, oh, a pretty bird. But in the wild, the peacock is a fierce fighter. It eats snakes. It literally converts poison into plumage. It represents an exuberant, martial nature.
So the vibe of Krittika is direct, blunt. It's that friend who tells you the truth about your bad haircut when everyone else is being polite to spare your feelings.
It is the energy of getting to the point. It cuts through all the superficial layers. But to really understand why it behaves this way and why it's so intense, we have to look at where it sits in the sky.
Right.
This is where the astronomy actually explains the psychology.
Right. This is the concept of the cosmic bridge. Because unlike the first two nakshatras, Krittika isn't contained in just one zodiac sign, is it?
No. And this is crucial. This is one of the nakshatras that bridges two signs. It spans from 26-degree 40-minute Aries to 10 degrees minutes Taurus.
Okay, let's pause and visualize that for a second. Aries and Taurus are very different neighborhoods.
Completely different. They're almost antithetical. The first quarter, or poda of Krittika, is in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. It's pure impulse, initiative, drive.
The soldier charging into battle?
Yes, the soldier charging into battle with a scream, the just-do-it energy. High adrenaline.
Okay.
But then the energy shifts. The remaining three quarters, the majority of the nakshatra are in Taurus. And Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's about manifestation, structure, beauty, form. It's earthy and grounded.
So Krittika is the transition zone. It's where that cosmic spark of Aries hits the earth of Taurus and begins to take shape.
Think of it as the transition from the soldier to the builder, Or, even better, think of it as fire management. In Aries, Krittika is the explosion, the bomb going off. In Taurus, Krittika is the steam engine. We're taking that explosive fire and trapping it in a container in Taurus so it can do work.
That's a great analogy. It's where raw energy is contained to create something tangible. If you just have the fire, you burn the house down. If you just have the earth, you have a pile of cold dirt.
You need Krittika to bake the bricks.
To bake the bricks. I like that.
And astronomically, we're talking about the Pleiades here.
The seven sisters.
Yes. The star cluster Pleiades. Alcyone is the brightest star there. It's a very visible, very famous cluster. And in almost every ancient culture, from the Greeks to the Mayans to Aboriginal Australians, this cluster is seen as a group of women.
In the Vedic tradition, they're the wives of the seven sages.
Exactly, which we will get to in the mythology because that story is, well, it's a scandal.
It really is. But before we get to the soap opera, we have to talk about the landlord, the deity running this whole show.
Agni, the god of fire.
Now, for those listening who might not be deep into the Vedic pantheon, Agni is a big deal, right? He's not just some minor spirit.
Oh, he's huge. In the Rig Veda, the oldest text, more hymns are addressed to Agni than almost anyone else. He is the priest of the gods. He's a messenger.
So he's the cosmic delivery service.
It's in a spiritual sense, yes.
Yeah.
When a ritual is performed, it's Agni who carries the sacrifice from the humans up to the heavens. But Agni has that dual nature we talked about in the intro. He's the chef and the destroyer.
The chef.
Well, think about it. Civilization begins when we master fire. Fire cooks food. It transforms raw, inedible ingredients into nutrition that sustains us. That's Agni in Taurus, the domestic fire.
Okay.
But Agni can also burn uncontrollably and destroy the forest. That's Agni in Aries.
So the power of Krittika the Shakti is related to this transformative ability.
Yes. The specific power is called Dahana Shakti. It translates to the power to burn and purify.
Burn and purify. Usually we think of burning as destruction, but you're likening it to sterilizing a needle.
Exactly. The imagery used in the texts is heat above, light below. The result is purification. Fire is the only element that doesn't get polluted. If you throw dirt into water, the water gets dirty.
Right.
If you throw dirt into fire, the fire burns the dirt and remains fire.
That's profound. It burns away negativity, karma, impurities to get to the deepest truth.
It's like a fever. When you get a high fever, you feel terrible. You feel like you're burning up.
Yeah.
But physiologically, that fever is your body cooking the bacteria to kill it. It's burning the infection to heal the body.
So Krittika cleanses, but the process of cleansing can be painful. It involves cutting out the rot.
Which brings us to the mythology. Because you can't have a nakshatra this intense without a dramatic backstory. And this one involves lust, shape-shifting, and a very complicated divine birth.
Okay, set the stage. Agni, our fire god, goes to a ritual. And who does he see?
He sees the wives of the seven sages, the rishis. These are the holiest men in the cosmos. And Agni, being fire-impulsive and consuming, falls madly in love with their wives.
Bad move, Agni. That's breaking a lot of cosmic rules.
Terrible move. He knows it's wrong. He's tormented by guilt, so he goes into the forest to cool off. But his own wife, Svaha, sees him pining away. Now, Svaha represents the offering poured into the fire. She wants to please her husband.
So what does she do? She doesn't confront him. She doesn't start an argument. She gets creative.
She shapeshifts. She transforms herself to look exactly like the wives of the sages. She manages to mimic 6 of them. She couldn't mimic the 7th, Arundhati, because Arundhati's devotion to her husband was so pure it acted like a shield.
Wow.
But Svaha gets the other 6 perfectly.
So Agni thinks he is with the wives of the sages, but he's actually with his own wife, Svaha, in disguise.
Correct. And after each encounter, Svaha takes Agni's seed and deposits it into a golden lake on a mountain, hidden in the reeds.
And from this golden lake, a child is born.
Kartikeya, also known as Skanda or Morrigan. He's the general of the celestial armies.
And here is where the Pleiades come back in, right? The actual stars.
Yes. When the child was born, the 6 Krittikas, the stars, the actual wives who were impersonated, they were cast out by their husbands because of the scandal.
The sages thought their wives had cheated.
They did. So these 6 outcast mothers found the baby in the reeds, and they nursed him.
They nursed him.
But here is the detail that matters for the listener. The baby Kartikeya was so hungry, and there were 6 mothers wanting to feed him. So he split his head into 6 faces, Shanmuka, so he could nurse from all 6 mothers simultaneously.
That is such a specific, bizarre detail. But what does it mean for the energy of Krittika? Why does that matter to us?
This is the key insight. Krittika is a foster mother energy. It nurtures. Yes, the Kritikas nursed the baby. But look at who they nurtured. They didn't nurture a poet or a farmer. They nurtured the general of the army, the god of war.
So it's nurturing, but it's tough love.
It's nurturing strength. It's the energy that raises a warrior. It protects the vulnerable by creating something strong enough to fight. Kartikeya was born specifically to destroy the demon Taraka, who was terrorizing the universe.
So Krittika nurtures the force that destroys evil.
Yes, and that connects back to the Mars and Aries influence. It's maternal care, but with a sword in hand. It's the mother bear. Which brings us to the psychological profile of people who have this energy prominent in their charts. We mentioned Agni, but in the Vinshatari Dasha system, the planetary periods, Krittika, is actually ruled by the sun.
The sun, the king.
The sun brings pride. It brings ambition. And it brings a penetrating insight. The sun illuminates everything. It doesn't let secrets stay in the dark.
I see.
If you have strong Krittika energy, you have a built-in lie detector. You can see right through people.
What about the temper? The sources mention a specific type of anger here.
Yes. It's described as royal anger. And this is an important distinction. Mars anger, remember the soldier, can be impulsive or it can be a lingering resentment, a grudge that festers.
Like road rage that ruins your whole day.
Right, but the sun's anger is different. It's righteous, it flares up, burns the impurity, and then it's gone. Doesn't hold on. It's like a thunderstorm on a hot afternoon. It's loud, it's scary, it cleans the air, and then the sun comes out again immediately.
So they don't hold grudges?
Generally, no. They express the anger, fix the problem, and move on. However, we have to address the classification in the ancient texts, because this often freaks people out. Krittika is classified as Rakshasa Gana.
Rakshasa, that means demon.
It does.
Whoa, hold on. We just talked about purification, priests, Agni, and nurturing. How do we get to demon nature? That seems like a massive contradiction.
I know it sounds bad, but in Vedic astrology, Rakshasa, or demon nature, doesn't mean evil or satanic. It refers to the means used to achieve the end.
The means?
A Rakshasa energy is ruthless. It acts with a tit-for-tat dictum. It is highly protective of its own tribe and highly aggressive toward threats.
So it's not turn the other cheek?
Definitely not. If you slap a Krittika person, they don't offer the other cheek. They slap you back harder to ensure you never do it again.
It's pragmatic ruthlessness.
Think of it this way. If you have gangrene in your leg, you don't want a diva, godly doctor who is just nice and polite and puts a bandage on it while smiling. You want a doctor with enough Rakshasa energy to say, I am cutting this leg off right now to save your life.
It cuts out the rot, even if it hurts.
Even if it hurts. It works on the principle of necessary destruction. It's also interesting to note the guna, or quality, is rajas, which means it's active and passionate. And the motivation, or purushartha, is kama, which is desire.
Desire. I would have thought it would be dharma, or duty, given the sun's influence.
You would think so. But remember Agni and the wives. Remember the impulse. This energy is driven by a strong desire to manifest creative impulses in the world. It wants to birth the warrior, wants to cook the food. It's an active, desiring force. It wants to impact the material world.
It's also classified as mishra, right? Which means mixed.
Yes, mixed means it combines the sharp, hot nature with a softer, lighter touch. It's not just brute force. It has the capacity for delicacy. Remember, it can cook a meal or sew a garment. It's not just a sledgehammer, it's a scalpel.
So bringing this down to earth for our listener, if someone has this energy, maybe their moon is here or their ascendant, how do they use this in the modern world? They aren't running around with swords.
The best metaphor is the chef.
Back to the kitchen.
Think about the digestive fire, Jyotirani. When you eat an apple, your body has to destroy the apple to turn it into you. It breaks it down. Krittika energy allows you to take raw data confusion, information, chaos, and cook it. You digest it, separate the useful from the useless, and turn it into knowledge.
So it's great for researchers.
Excellent for researchers, critics,
Right.
lawyers, editors, anyone who has to find the needle in a haystack.
Debaters.
Oh, they are terrifying in a debate. They will dismantle your argument piece by piece.
It's also excellent for anything involving sharp tools, surgeons, obviously, but also sewing, acupuncture, or even technology where precision is key.
But I imagine this is bad for relaxing. Terrible for relaxation. You don't use a flamethrower to take a nap. It's also generally considered bad for diplomacy. Diplomacy requires blurring the lines, smoothing things over, telling little white lies to keep the peace.
And Krittika hates that.
Krittika hates that. Krittika wants to sharpen the lines and wants to call a spade a spade.
And that leads to the shadow side, because every nakshatra has a shadow.
The danger zone, the stubbornness, and the cutting nature, turning inward or onto loved ones. If you are always cutting, you eventually cut the people you love, the razor can slip.
So being overly critical, fault-finding.
Exactly. Imagine being married to someone who treats your feelings like a data set to be analyzed and corrected. You're feeling sad. Well, here are the 3 logical reasons why that's incorrect.
Ouch, that's the low vibration.
That is the low vibration.
Okay.
Using that sharp intellect to humiliate someone rather than to solve the problem, burning the house down because you didn't like the curtains.
It seems like the challenge for anyone with this placement is managing the heat.
Managing the heat and directing the blade. Remember, it spans Aries and Taurus. You have the fire of Aries, but you need the stability of Taurus to make it useful. If you stay only in the Aries side, you're just an explosion, you're reactive. If you can move that energy into the Taurus side, you become a creator. You become the builder.
So let's try to summarize this deep dive. Krittika is the cosmic scalpel. It's the energy of the sun and Agni. It bridges the warrior and the builder. It purifies through heat and light.
And it reminds us that sometimes destruction is a form of creation. You have to break the egg to make the omelet. You have to burn the field to fertilize the soil. You have to cut the umbilical cord to allow the baby to live its own life. Separation is painful, but it is the prerequisite for growth.
It's intense energy. It's not for the faint of heart.
It is, but it's the energy that civilization is built on. Without Agni, without that fire to cook and forge, we're just eating raw food in the dark.
That's a powerful image. We started with the razor blade, and I want to leave our listener with that image.
It really is the ultimate test of intention.
We know this energy purifies by burning away the unnecessary. But the final question for you is, if you picked up the razor of Krittika today, right now, in your relationships or your work, are you acting as the surgeon trying to heal or the enemy trying to wound?
The blade doesn't know the
If
difference.
only you do.
Until the next deep dive.